Well, we're in section 28 now, and this is where my great aunt Kate, she was my great great aunt Kate, raised me as a little boy because everybody was working, and I had to stay home with her since I was so young. Anyway, she came over. She was a sister of Anna Cook, who was great grandpa Cook's wife. And she came over on a sailing ship when she was 14 years old and worked in a slaughterhouse as an indentured servant. And the funny thing about her, when she had worked off her indentureship, she thought she was an American citizen, so she revolted the Republican Party until 1941. When World War II broke out, and Aunt Dot remembered that she was still a German national and not a citizen. Anyway, she worked along with her sister Anna Becker Cook in twisting meanies. They made winners by hand in those days, and right along with it. She was a fantastic woman. I can't say enough about her because of some of my fondest memories. She had a feather bed. It was a single feather bed, but as a real young little boy, maybe 4 or 5 at the most, she used to get up with the chickens and go to bed as the chickens, as they all said. And I'd crawl in bed with her at 7 o'clock at night and would sink way down into the feathers. And I remember, though, when she was lying on it, one of the great things about her, when I had to get up coal or wood. One of the great things about her, when I had to get up coal or wood at coal stove. And when I had Uncle Will, who was one of Grandma Hensel's sons, also a butcher, he would leave Aunt Kate 2 shots of whiskey. All the butchers in those days carried a half a pint in their hip pocket, and he'd give Kate every day when he came up and finished the work 2 shots of whiskey in 2 little glasses. And she would take one and she'd tell me in under the mantle where she hid the shot of whiskey. And after I got the coal and wood up, and it'd be really cold in those days, and so I would take that whiskey without a shot, and I could just remember going, but it made me feel good. So when I wasn't an alcoholic was all with. But anyway, she was always making soup. She made soup every day, and a different type, and it with a beef noodle or vegetable soup or chicken or what have you. It was always great, and she made great hash as well. Aunt Emma was the wife of Uncle Win.
Okay.
Great Uncle Win and great Aunt Emma. She was kind of a mealy type of woman, always looking around, being suspicious and all that. But anyway, Uncle Win, he was very German, and even though he was born in this country and this whole thing, so was great Grandpa Cook, born in this country. But he spoke fluent German. I remember when he moved out, he said to Aunt Kate, "Auf Wiedersehen," saying, "I'll see you again." Anyway, it was. I like the old man. When I go down, Mom say, "Go down and get 15 cents for the hamburger." That was £1.50 in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And so my friends Jimmy Cardell and J.T. Johnson, Rusty Sullivan, and some of the kids around there, they'd all come in to go with me to get meat, because Uncle Win would always say, "How you like this?" And he'd slice off the bologna that he'd made that day or the day before, and all of us would have a piece of sandwich meat. Whether it could have been Braunschweiger as well. I can remember Jimmy Carnell, my best friend at those days, when he and Emma, after they died, Arthetta, the daughter-in-law, owned the house. And my mother said to her, "Arthetta, you don't want this house." She says, "I've never owned anything in my life. Could I have it?" And Arthetta says, "You're right. I don't want it. You can have it." So my mother wound up owning the house that great-great-grandpa Cook had built. And of course, Pat and Alan and I inherited the house when Jim died, which we sold immediately. and on this side is Edwin Jr., that's Uncle Win's son. He died at a young age of 50. He was going to be trained to be an opera singer, but he didn't quite make it. And Arthetta was his wife, Huzzy, and very, very bossy. But that was it.
Okay.
This is the grave of Uncle Win and Aunt Emma and my great Aunt Kate, Catherine Becker.
So, what do we have here?
This is my great-great-grandpa, George Koch. He's more or less the patriarch of the family. He, at one time, owns over 7 slaughterhouses there down Quincy Street. They called it Quincy Street, the nickname it Cook's Roll. But by the time I came along, he died in 1928, and I was born in 29. So all I know is the stories they told about him. Anyway, he was a very gentle man, and his wife Anna was another one. I mean, she was typical. She was a Becker, and typical German, you know, very tight-fisted and everything else. But he would steal from his own self to go give roasts and steaks and so forth to poor people that he knew down in the neighborhood. And I wish I had really known him, because he seemed to have been such a nice man. He also said he was a faith healer, and that one woman had come all the way from St. Louis to see him, and they went down there, and he was on the killing floor in the slaughterhouse, and they told him, he said, "Oh, what the hell's that damn woman doing here?" But anyway, he took his apron off and his boots off and went on up, and he said, started praying over her, and just as pious as all get out, as they said, and said the woman got well. So I guess there's a lot to be said for the faith healing. The people had the faith in the healer, I guess, and they healed themselves, but whatever. He was a very successful man, and I wished I had known him, but he is still, like I said, the patriarch of the family. Wasn't too fond maybe of his daddy or whatever, I don't know. So he was too tight to get 2 headstones. So he just got the one. And he had a wife of George Koch. And he has her date of birth and date of death, but he doesn't say anything about the date of birth and death of Grandpa Koch, who I know died in 1928.
Do you know what would a headstone like this have cost back then?
I really don't know, Mark. Maybe several thousand. 2,000, 3,000, something like that.
So what you're saying is that instead of buying well, maybe this had a factor with the Depression, that they just didn't have the money when he died?
No, he had money. He was rich.
Oh.
He owned a slaughterhouse. And they were killing cattle every day. People had to eat back then. And but anyway, at one time he had, as I said, owned 7 slaughterhouses, and some bums or hobos or whatever taking refuge in the wintertime, and they started firing one of them, and 6 of the others, all 7 of them died, burned to the ground. And he lost all, but he still had the one there on Quincy Street. He felt sorry for Grandma Hensel, his daughter, my great grandmother, and well, she kept having so many kids. She had 14 kids. And I think 2 or 3 of them died. But anyway, the rest of them all, I knew most of them. And, so he built her a house right next to his. We were 14, 15, and they were 14, 13, her house. And ours had 11 rooms, counting the shed kitchens, and hers had 6 rooms, counting the shed kitchens. And they were.
And how many people lived in all those rooms?
Well, Grandma and Grandpa have to live in the one house with all of their kids.
How many were that?
And well, she had about 8 or 12 kids living. She had 14, and maybe 8 or 10 of them were living there at the house.
At the same time?
Yeah. And then over there at our house was just Grandpa Koch was living there, and Kate. So that's just the 2 of them. So. Oh yeah, and his son Edwin, of course.
Point to where we are.
Right here.
Hold on. Okay, so we are next to a lake.
And near the office.
So we are actually not exactly where the yellow is, but in front of the yellow before you get to this road.
Yeah.
That was the. She almost got it right.
Yeah.
In the office there. So we are in P section next to the lake. Okay, so where are we right now?
We're at my mother and stepfather's grave in Kate Becker Cemetery, and it's kind of an isolated place back here. But both of them died pretty young, as far as our longevity and our family is concerned. Clarence died he was 66, and my mother was 58, I believe. So, yeah, 58. So that was very young. The strange thing about it was Alan was coming home coming back to live. He and his first wife Bonnie were breaking up, and he got there down on Quincy Street, the family homestead, 10 minutes after his father had died. He had a cerebral hemorrhage, a stroke in it. And that was really a jolt all the way around.
So did he die at home, or?
Yes, he died there at home. My mother was strange one. She had all sorts of problems, cancers and all that kind of stuff. But I think more importantly, she died with sort of a broken hope or broken heart and hopelessness. She and Clarence both drank heavily, and they didn't have any money or any income coming in. And I remember she got herself worked some kind of a governmental deal to go into hospital, St. Joseph's Hospital out on Eastern Parkway, which has since been torn down. And when she left, I took her to the hospital, and she said, walked out the front, she said, I want to go back and take one more look at my house and my kitchen. And so anyway, she said to me one time, I was supposed to die yesterday, but they couldn't get here. They were coming in a helicopter to get me. But there was a storm over the Pacific Ocean, and they couldn't get here. But I'll be gone tomorrow. And she told somebody, she said, what are you talking about? I said, well, David understands. But anyway, the next day she died. I looked in the paper, and there was indeed a storm over the Pacific the day before, which was very, very strange. And, so that's, she was sort of a puzzle to me, enigma, or whatever you call it. My earliest recollection of her is being she was giving me a bath one time, and I wouldn't let her see my behind. I said, "That's my moon. That's private." She says, "You'll learn differently when you get older." But I used to. She was an artist when she did work. She was painted birds of paradise and Chinese junks and things like that on silk lampshades. And they were pretty popular back in the 30s.
Who'd she paint for?
She painted for Klein, I think it was, lampshade company. And she would bring them home and paint them. And actually, I learned how to wire sockets at age 5 and 6, because they would do the whole lamp, and she would do the painting in oils on the lampshades. And unfortunately, we never kept any of that.
We were talking about Jenny Mother. And what did you call her?
I
Mother?
called her Jen.
Jen.
She
Did you always call her Jen, or?
She told me to. See, I was born when she was 17. And she was single. She and I split up. They may have made it go together. I don't know. But somebody said that, like Dot said, Mom and Pop split them up because they wanted me. I don't understand that, but anyway. So anyway, she said, "You call me Jen because I don't want my boyfriends coming here knowing I got a son." I said, "All right, that's fine." So anyway, that's how I wound up calling her Jen. And Pat called her Jen too, because that was something that she thought she should do. Alan still called them Mom and Dad. Anyway, and he still refers to them as Mom and Dad. As I said, she was a sort of a strange woman. She was always looking for something. She was looking for some love and what have you. She and Dot, her sister, had a tremendous rivalry. They both hated each other with a passion.
And that's Dot Martin?
Dot Martin, right.
What was their age difference?
They were about 2-3 years at the most. And it makes no... Dot was conceived out of wedlock. I was conceived out of wedlock. Pat was conceived out of wedlock. Dot and Alan are about the only two that I know born in wedlock. No, my mother, Dot was out of wedlock. They were married 4 months after she was, after she got pregnant. Dot was born in the last of July, and they got married in April, so there was that. I was born the last of August, and they got married in April. Jen and Clyde got married in April. But Jen was born legitimately, as far as parents are concerned. But knowing my grandmother, I don't know if she was legitimate or not, because Mom had a lot of boyfriends too. We think of those days of prudence and so forth, and they were a heck of a lot wilder, I suppose, than they are today.
Just more secretive about it, perhaps?
That's right, yeah. Those days, a good Catholic girl would get pregnant, and she would vanish for 4 or 5 months, She'd come back, and somebody else would claim the child. But nowadays, you just carry it with as a badge of honor or something, whatever.
Now, there's a cross on here. Were they religious? Did they go to church?
Everybody either had a cross or a Star of David. And to let you know they were Christian, period. I will have one on my tombstone, I'm sure. Both Jen and Clarence, they had a liquor store, and they drank themselves out of the store. But what they didn't drink themselves out of, their friends came in and stole from them. And it was sad, but he had a great going little business up there.
Where was it located?
It was located at off of Frankfurt Avenue, Frankfurt State, I believe. But they wouldn't let me work for them because they didn't want me to see the shenanigans. When I turned 21.
Sure.
And I said, what, $1 an hour? That would have been great for me in those days. But so that was that. Clarence was a sort of a strange cuss. He played piano. He had everything going for him. His mother and father thought the world sun rose and set in his body and the whole thing. They had a 16-cylinder LaSalle when he was growing up, and he got to drive the thing all over the place, and it was unbelievable, all the perks that he had in life.
Were they well-to-do?
Well, yeah, his father, Carlin was his sister, Clarence Eckerle, and his father was a barber. Had at the Tower Hotel and had a thriving business. In fact, he owned a shop. He had 2 or 3 other chairs in there that he got money off of people cutting. And then he got wrapped up in the Republican Party, and he's going to run for sheriff, and he lost all of his money paying for campaigns and everything else. And so they wound up moving in with Grandma Hansel on Quincy Street, and she, Aunt Nettie, died of a broken heart more than anything else.
Huh. Now, when they lost the money, was that because he didn't win and he didn't get to cash in, so to speak?
Right, and he spent so much money and on campaign financing, and I think a lot of the people just took his money and ran with it. His handlers or what have you. Things weren't so much different today as they were back then. Everybody was stealing from somebody in politics and sorts. I really learned to like Clarence. After Jen died, Mom Watson still lived, he and Mom Watson still lived on Quincy Street, and Pop too. And we'd all sit together and talk at supper table at night. I remember one time Clarence came in and he said, "Here's Bobby Kennedy's death warrant." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He showed me a little inch of copy in the newspaper, and said if Bob Kennedy is backing somebody about with the Muslims, and a week later he was shot, assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, Islamic Muslim terrorist extremist. But he was always looking things like that. He had a good uncanny instinct, ability to check out things politically, as far as that's concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he also, I've got a book that he was into the occult, wasn't he? I mean, the one book I've got signed by him in my library is Ancient and Forbidden Knowledge. And
well, that's something like
so,
that. So everybody was going in for that kind of stuff in those days.
Oh, really? Huh.
Oh, yeah. And they had a saying that Arthetta was Uncle Wynn's daughter-in-law. She married his son, and she had the ancient books of the occult or something, the Bible backwards or whatever, the books, the satanic ritual or satanic Bible or whatever. And they always said that she used that to kill everybody and get what she wanted. I don't know. Arthetta was another idiot too.
Okay, so where are we going to now?
We'll show her Alan, if I can find it. Alan and I are going to be buried.
So this is like the Ghost of the Future.
Yes, the Ghost of the Future.
Tour.
And you see that obelisk?
Yeah.
Okay, it's right up there. You see the little 2 flags are on the gravestones?
Yes. Flags, yeah, it says okay. Alan.
So that's where Alan and I are going to be buried.
Oh, okay. Is that just coincidental that there's a grave stone that says Alan on it?
No. We don't have our stone. We're going to let Lisa and Whitney fight over that.
Where are we going now?
We're going to see Grandpa Hansel and Grandma Hansel.
And what were their actual full names?
Well, Henry Hansel and Mary Hansel. I forgot their middle names, but
And who were their children?
Mom Watson was one of their daughters. They had 14 children,
Wow.
and Grandpa Cook felt sorry for her because she and her husband had so many kids, so he built her the house next to where he lived so he could keep in touch with her. But at any rate, Grandpa Hansel was the descendant of Hessian soldiers that fought for the British in the Revolutionary War.
So where are we?
We are at my great-grandparents, Henry and Mary Hansel. They lived next door to me at 1413 Quincy Street. They lived at 1450. Grandpa Hansel was quite an industrious man. He was a fireman, and he drove horses to the fire. He had four or six horses. They were all gray mares, or gray horses anyway. And when I was a kid, he still had their tack hanging in his garage down on Quincy Street. He told a story once that they had 6 fires in the same day, and he said the last fire they just walked the horses to because they were too damn tired to run.
And we got a train in the background. So they carried, or they pulled a water tanker carriage or something?
They pump, to pump the water, give it the strength to get to the taller buildings. Anyway, that fire station up on top of Frankfurt Avenue Hill at Frankfurt and Pope Street, that's where the station is. Now it's called the Silver Dollar Restaurant, right next to the old Hilltop Theater. He was a gentleman. We'd all sit over at his house, on dinner sometimes, and all the kids, there were a bunch of us, they get out of hand. He had an arm that could reach halfway across the room, and he could just flick you with his fingernail, and you felt it for a couple of days. But you behaved yourself when you were at his table. Grandma Hansel was a special woman. She had the gift. Grandpa Cook was a healer, and so was she. And she had the gift of breathing out fire. I remember 2 occasions. That one, I was 3 years old, or 4 years old, pulled a bucket of scrubbing water, boiling water over on my arm, and they rushed me right across the patio like a fair to hers. She had me in her arms, and I can remember her whispering in German prayers over me, and I didn't so much as have a red spot on my arm that evening. She cooked. The strangest things, they started cooking on Saturday morning for Sunday's meal, and we had some of the best bakery goods you'd ever want to taste. Cuckoos and all sorts of pies. And of course, living in front of the slaughterhouse, it was nothing to have 2 different roasts, pork roast or beef roast, on the table for dinner. Strangely enough, chicken was a rarity. Was a treat for us because we had so much pork and beef on the table all the time. Anyway,
so the slaughterhouse didn't slaughter chickens; it just did cows, or
that is cows, hogs, and
hogs.
For a while, calves and sheep. I remember in the 37 flood, we stayed over at Aunt Louise and Uncle Emil's house on Charleston Street. I slept on the table, and they slept on the floor in the same room. And she would say after the water started going down, "Henry, did you go over to that house and start cleaning? Henry, you going over there?" And this would be 5 o'clock in the morning. He said, "Yes, woman, I'll be over there. Don't worry. Shut up." And she still ran and raved till he finally got up. I had to get out of here to get some peace, I could hear him say. But
was that part of the culture of German women?
Yes.
Okay.
Grandpa and Grandpa Hansel, their grave is near the cremation sign over here. to my right.
Okay, we're looking for who?
Becker, Martin, Watson.
Okay, so what do we find?
This is Mom and Pop Watson,
Ah,
my grandparents. Julius Watson, just called him JB because his middle name was Palestine. And Eva Henrietta. They were ostensibly the ones that raised me from my time that I can remember. They and my great aunt Kate, who was there mostly all the time for me. And I remember this was growing up during the Depression times, and Pop, I can going down, and I was 3 years old, I guess, maybe 4. To the water company, and Pop was a teller and accountant down there, and a great paid job and everything else. But it was politics, and when the Democrats got in, he got kicked out. So Pop, with all of his education and everything else, started tending bar. I mean, he didn't give a doggone what he did, so long as he said, I don't care what I do, so long as I'm working. Became a heck of a bartender at that. And Mom, she worked in the distilleries, and she got me the job there in 1945 when I was 15, lied about my age. I remember it was something else. I was really rich, and when it came time to go back to school, she says, "You're quitting, and you're not going to stay there. You're going back to school." I says, "Yeah, Mom, my job won't be mine for long when the people start coming back from the war, getting jobs back." I said, "I'm going to get an education." I said, "That's what I want to work, wear myself out. I'm going to sit on my behind all day long." So that's what I did.
what year was that?
That was 1945. Pop was, he could add three columns of figures at one time in his head. I mean, he was a mathematical expert in that. He had the most beautiful handwriting that you'd ever want to see. And as a matter of fact, he addressed all the invitations to your mom and my wedding. And everybody thought it was done professionally, and that he just did it.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
So what was his education?
He had a high school education. He was also a cub reporter for the Courier Journal. He, let's see.
What does that mean, cub reporter?
Well, it's just beginning reporter, but he did write stories in that. He's a very, very intelligent man. It's unbelievable. But you know, he fell in love with Mom, and he just couldn't. That culture on Quincy Street drug him down, and he just learned to live with it and love it. Aunt Louise was Mom Watson's baby sister, and they never had any children. But they brought in and raised Henny Gray, and let's see, one other, Boo Gray over there. Aunt Vala had all those kids and never raised one of them except Lucille. That was the one that you remember as a dog lady. But Henny, and they raised Carlin after Aunt Nettie died. Aunt Nettie and Uncle Fred, so they took in Carlin. So they were the children that they had. Uncle Emil also raised fighting roosters, gamecocks, and he took me to a couple cockfights up in the barn in Lexington overnight. And the roosters that were killed, they would just dunk them in water, bleed them out, dunk them in water, pull the feathers out, put them on a spit and roast them. because the fights went on all night long.
And I'm sure that was frowned upon by.
It was frowned upon and still is by the law. But the sheriff came in and they gave him $50 and he walked away. And it's the way things are down there in Lexington. They're all over, I suppose.
So our marker here. So this is a tree that you always.
Yeah, on these two trees here. I was a little boy for Decoration Day or Memorial Day. Used to have a marching band, military band with